interesting is immediately this muscle right here started to pop out.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if, so this is part of her sling muscles. And these would have been engaged heavily as a dressage horse. Okay, so even though she hasn't lifted her back, she's responded by puffing that out. So, and this muscle here is brings the leg forward, and it also has bulged out as compared to what it looked like a few minutes ago before you mounted. It's not spasmy or super tight. It's just popped, which is I think what you were trying to explain to me.
I think she would like you to come to this side as well, Ainsley. She's gestured a couple times to this side, so maybe that's more severe on this side or something, or she wants you to start here. I don't know.
Okay, on this side the muscles aren't bulging as much, but there is a wicked knot right there. So that would be basically where the flap of the dressage saddle would go, right? And of course there would be a lot of leg pressure right there. Or there could be a lot of leg pressure there. But it's not the same on this side to the other side. Normally when you're, you know, she's just standing in a relaxed state, she's quite symmetrical. So that's very interesting.
Now, can you check the line of her neck from her ear? Because what she showed us before, there's something that goes from her ear down the neck, and this neck normally comes way tenser than it should. I don't know if it's doing that today. And it somehow connects into what's happening here.
Okay, so when you're talking about from the ear this way?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. Now she's a little distracted because she's got a little tiny bit of alfalfa in there that she's enjoying. But one of the muscles that will come down into this area tips the ear back and forth. So, and that's what she immediately was doing, was tipping the ear. So whether we can read that as her eating the alfalfa, or this is again her trying to recalibrate a little bit with your very different way of being and very different way of riding. She has a lot of knots in her neck, and these don't usually show up.
Yes, when you're working with her without me on her back, none of this shows up.
No.
Yeah.
No, it really doesn't. Like those are pretty significant.
So what I'm wondering at this stage is, and I asked her when all this stuff, because I was the one watching while Ireland got on her back, and then Ireland was the one who said, look at all this stuff that's happening, because her vision for these things is better than mine. And so when I asked her at that point, I said, do you need EFT for this old story? And she said, no, I want Ainsley to do the psych-K.
Okay, well, we can do that. I'm in.
So
yeah, that would be a really, really wonderful thing to do for her.
Because am I right that the fact that this pops when I'm on her back, but not other times, shows that this is a belief or an emotional story or a past trauma that's actually locked into the cells and the tissues? Would that be how you would say it, or would you say it a different way? I
think that would be a pretty, it's the body storing emotion, and it hasn't released that emotion around it and triggered. So she's not mentally triggered and reactive or uncomfortable because she's so safe with you, and she's always known that, right? But this old story shows up in her body immediately. And at this point, she's walked a total of about 25 steps, if that, right? So we can't say this is what happens as she begins to exercise and work her body. This is just instant. It just came,
yes,
right? Which is once again showing the mind-body connection, right? Exactly. Over and over again we get to see the mind-body connection. And
okay, so see how her head is cantered around to the left that way,
and her ear is down. Yes.
Yeah, so when I rub under her belly or even towards her udder, which she adores, in her ecstasy and her pleasure, she bends that way.
Always?
Always that way, only that way, and often so much that I'm going, you're going to fall over.
Oh.
So there's, to me, it's like, well, why is that happening?
That's a good question. I mean, there's a natural response to this pleasure stimulation, whether it's, you know, that perfect scratch on the withers or the udder or, you know, her favorite place. And they will. It's like, you know, trying to get that massage exactly where you want it. But the fact that she always cants the same way, she may be looking for some release coming out. So it's like, yes, yes, yes.
Right.
Oh, and I wish it would let go through my neck.
And it doesn't matter which side of her body I'm standing on and rubbing from. She, same thing, same way, same direction.
Yes. Off to the left.
To the left and curving, like she brings her head all the way back here.
Wow.
We're going for a walk. We're going somewhere. Is it time for me to get off?
We'll take the information with gratitude, and we'll go to message received.
Yep.
And we'll see what happens in her body with some body work in psych-K.
Okay, so I want you to video me getting off, because sometimes she does some interesting things as I'm dismounting, and this might give you some information too.
Okay.
All right, I'm ready to get off now, sweetie. Yeah. Oh, not bad.
No. And a nice sigh.
Big sigh. With my butt padding, so we know it's not my sits bones or my pubic bones that are bugging her.
True.
Yeah. All right.
So the process that Zora and I just did together is a psych-K process, which is identifying the condition, which in this case was trauma memory, and receiving the message in that trauma memory, and therefore being able to release that condition quickly and permanently. Okay, so in doing that, this message with horses is inevitably subconscious. They're not particularly verbal. They don't need to know a whole bunch of language. But what's happened for her is that this process has taken place. She's accepted the message on a subconscious level. It's working through her body, and it's releasing this trauma memory. As I was doing, it's called a balance, as I was doing the balance for her, I had a really strong impression of a young horse. I already know that she had dressage training, but that there was a lot on her face. Now, maybe that's not the case, but for her it felt like a lot on her face, and that she would try to move against it and brace, and she was being suckled side to side and brought in and over flexed and waited for her to soften. But what she felt was that it was the exact opposite, was that she was bracing and that it hurt her muscles in that case. And so when I went to the other side, after having just done this very, very quiet balance with her, all those muscles on the other side had softened up where they had been very popped in her neck specifically. And what she wanted was it to be followed up with body work. So what I very quickly did, and just started with on the other side, was a nervous system technique for releasing scar tissue. So the emotional body wants psych-K. The physical body, here in the physical plane, wants a little bit of body work.
I love that.
Right?
So often we forget that we need to treat all aspects of the being. We think that, oh, if we just heal the spiritual or energetic, then it'll filter on down and it'll be okay. And my experience healing my own body and my readers has been, no, you have to heal all the levels of the being.
Which makes perfect sense. And horses are such physical beings. So that made sense to me. And I'm always fascinated by that whole process. I always ask that the condition be released immediately and permanently when it's done. So there's no point in lingering on with this. She might as well let it go. It's not serving her now in this current life that she's living, which is pretty good loop. So I'm going to do a little body work.
Awesome.
See what happens. Scars release. It's really quite a neat technique because instead of working on scars physically, asking the tissues to break up and soften and reabsorb, doesn't get much easier than this. You just make a really, really, really rapid run along the body. So now we know that she's got various and sundry knots in here. And again, there she is, twisted and bent off to the left. Now, if we could tempt her with a little something something and ask her to really come to left, we'll see if she'd like to do that. And when I'm saying that she felt trapped, she felt bound up, of course she's being asked to lift through her shoulders, she's being asked to give her head, she's being asked to multitask. And in a young horse, it can be utterly overwhelming. And especially...
Yeah, so she's like, what do you have?
Pretty hard to resist the alfalfa. Now I know she can go a lot further than this.
She can.
That's better. That's what we were looking for.
Yeah.
And she can.
She
can bend
just
right to her hip.
She just had to reposition her feet and move back from the feeder.
Ah, good. Excellent. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with this. Now that that's happened, I'm just going to go and have a little feel and see if there's particular change in here. Now I can still feel a knot here, but significantly softer in through here. I would say in the neighborhood of 60% better.
Awesome.
So you have to get back up. I think that's what we really need to see, eh?
Okay.
So I have to say that I find it so interesting that here we have this very beautiful, well-bred mare who started life with some dressage training, and I've just worked with Odie. And there's a mare who is, other than being cared for, virtually untouched in terms of having been under saddle, being worked, being broke or started or any of that. Her muscles, Odie's muscles, are so soft and lush and pliable. They're just delicious. They're exact. And then we come in here and there's knot and knot and knot and knot all through this horse's body. And I can't help but notice that every time I put my hands on a horse that's been virtually untouched in terms of riding, their bodies feel amazing and they have almost no misalignments unless they've had an accident.
But here's the amazing thing about Zora. She's 11 years old. She's been ridden a total of 7 months.
Isn't that incredible?
In 11 years.
But the question is, how was she ridden in that 7 months?
Yeah.
Because you can do amazing things. You know, wear a badly pair of fitted shoes or shoes with a heel that's broken, and you're going to be amazed at how sore your back is, how quickly. So, whereas that's not to say that she was wearing bad tack or anything, but for her body and the stresses and the pressures that she was under. And I know lots of dressage horses that have beautiful, lush bodies. Okay, so it's not the sport per se, it's how the sport is played.
Interesting.
Do you know what I mean?
And the rider who rode her was an Olympic competitor.
Yes.
So it's not this thing of, well, you've got ignorant people who don't know what they're doing, abusing the horses. So no one can say, oh, that's fine because I know what I'm doing with my horse. I think the key is listening to your horse.
And when the stressors are too much, step back. Just, there's no loss in taking a step back and saying, how can we get there in a more comfortable, easier way so that it lasts for a lifetime? Mm-hmm. So you've got a comfortable horse that enjoys being under saddle for a lifetime. Because she'd like an adventure. Adventures are awesome.
She loves it. When we go in the park, she goes naturally into Spanish walk. She becomes collected. Her neck, you know, goes into basically what the dressage people are trying to do with her before.
Right.
She does it all of her own accord because the life force energy comes up through her body with such force and magnificence.
Well, and she's built for it.
And you
she's
feel
bred
her.
for it.
You feel her adventure, and she becomes bold. She will go off and explore a trail where no one has walked on. And this is the horse who's, you know, afraid of most things, and she's lower down in the herd ranking. But when she gets out there in the park on a trail, she comes to life.
So it's not that she doesn't love to be ridden.
Yeah.
It's how,
Exactly.
right? Is there force and duress, or is there joy in it?
And it's really important for her that when she says to me, I need you to get off, that I get off right
Yes.
away, because I made that mistake with her. I said, well, I don't want to get off because there's nowhere for me to get back on for quite a while. And you know what? I blew her trust, and it took me almost a year to gain it back. So now I'm like, okay, the second you say, can you get off, I need to trust that there is a really, really good reason you're asking for that, and to give it to you no matter what the inconvenience to me is.
That's how you build trust, isn't it?
Yeah.
In the end, that's a very interesting thought that I think needs to be mulled over a little bit, right? Because so often it's about us having fun,
Yes.
and as humans, and we completely forget that in this partnership we have a sentient being who also would like to enjoy their day.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just thought, okay, so we were going to do a little ride and see what happens with these muscles, right? All right, well, let's see what Zora would like to do.
Can you come a little closer, honey? Can you come a little closer? A little closer. Yeah, because I don't want to have to jump on your back. I need to get on your back so Ainsley can check if there's anything left that still needs to be done. You want me to get on from the other side? Bad getting on from this side, but I will. Just so you know, I'm a bit clumsier. Oh, I know, sweetheart.
Okay.
I know, baby. I hear you. Want the rope?
Okay, well, I'm going to just come on up and see. What do you see there, Jeannie, first, before I come up and take a peek?
It feels really different up here. I'm trying to decide if that's because I'm in a different spot or... Before it felt more like I was softer and sinking into her back. And now it feels like the back is kind of raised and up. So that's interesting.
Well, and of course, if her back is raised and up, she's in a more optimal position to carry you.
Yes.
And support your weight, right? As well as bring her hind legs underneath her and engage the hindquarters. So is that a readiness? She looks pretty happy with her hay.
I'm not seeing the big difference in swelling between the left and the right side.
Okay.
Like before, the left is still a touch bigger, but before it was noticeably bigger. What do you think? I'm gonna leave
And how
that
about in her neck? Are you seeing any change there? Okay, that looks good.
Yeah. The very first time I got on her neck here went rigid and started spasming from that old dressage story. And she showed me pictures of her, that her head was cranked in and her mouth hurt so bad. But so her neck was cramping. And you know, when you get a cramp, you're like, you want to stretch it out. She couldn't stretch it out because the pain in her mouth was so severe. And she also could, and then at the same time the woman was kicking.
To bring her back up.
Yes.
And push her forward.
Yeah.
She showed me the same pictures, Jeannie.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if we're done with that story, Zora, or like, do you need more help processing it, or are you done telling that story, or?
Well, the story no longer serves her.
No.
And so she doesn't need it anymore. She's been heard.
So right now, I don't know what she's doing with the legs, but she's like tipping me this way, which is interesting.
Well, she has one leg, hind leg forward, and it's just starting to drop into a little bit of a pocket there.
Yeah.
in the ground. So
Yeah, I've shifted myself, so.
now I want to come up because I'm very curious about this this area directly in front of your leg.
Check it, and I'll video you checking it.
Okay. That's a change. It doesn't feel as bulging. It just doesn't.
You know what's interesting? When you ran your hands there, I could feel the flesh ripple all the way under my leg.
Is that right?
Whereas before I felt nothing. So that tells me there's more movement.
And it's awake.
And it's softer.
And
yeah,
it's not
exactly. It's moving. It's not locked into one spot.
Now, right in here in her neck, I'm still feeling some scars.
Yeah.
But I didn't do the technique on this side. And, you know, she had sort of requested that it was a combination approach. And yet this is an astonishing change. I'm going to look on the other side. Butter. Just butter. So, note to self, do both sides. But she put me over here. I started to do the other side and she moved her body and made sure that I came into this side. And you were saying she always wants to stretch out to the left, and it makes sense because if this side is tight and locked up, she wants to stretch it out, and she's trying to create her own releases, but she was bound up.
Okay.
So I'll do something with the other side if she would like it. Is that something you would like, Beth? And if she wouldn't like it, I'm going to stop.
And if she'd like me to get off, just let us know, baby.
So right in here is where I really feel these old muscle knots and tension. And this is a horse that's had body work. You know, it's not like she, oh yeah, but she is softer in general. So I love this little technique because it's asking the body to do the work. So instead of massaging away, it's triggering. And since it's a non-invasive, very benign thing, it's a very safe thing to learn out of a book. And then again, in a perfect world, she's going to stretch the other way. So let's see if she wants to do that. And look at that, going back the other way again. Oh, sorry, sweetheart. That's pretty bendy.
Yeah.
Hey?
And with me on her back.
Yeah.
To get all the
and
way.
not distressed about you on her back.
No.
Right? And again, I'm not seeing, and you know, we know that there's just a little bit of extra Zora, right? And so yes, there's a little plumpness there and things like that. That's not what we were seeing before. Yeah. We were seeing rock hard reaction. Oh. Here we go. And there is her beautiful Andalusian. You know, I mean, she already has such presence and carriage. You know, when she just lifted like that, it's pretty elegant.
Yeah.
You understand why people love to do dressage with these horses.
Yeah. Oh, good girl. Good girl. Let's come up a little bit tighter. Oh, that is, she just, I don't know if you saw that, but she nuzzled my foot. And at the beginning of the video you saw she was biting at my foot.
Yes.
Ow, ow, get off, get off.
That's a change to go from a bite to a nuzzle.
Sweetheart.
So my first thought,
Yeah.
she wants to see if you will.
Ah. So you're feeling it's okay. She's not trying to show us anything. She just wants to see if I'll get off.
I think so.
Of course I'll get off. Of course I will. Of course I will. Oh, let's do your thing that you love. See her going to the left?
Yes, she is. And leaning hard.
Yeah. Oh, that's hard work.
Indeed.
Now I'll do it from this side.
And there she goes to the left and leaning away. That's exactly how you described it.
Oh, that's a workout. She's like, can I have some more? What I'd like to do is, because you see how she raises up? I'd like to teach her a cue when I'm sitting on her, that when I do that, like some tap or whatever, it means lift up, because that'll make you feel better.
Well, and it would be interesting to find a way to do that that is layering away from the previous experiences that she's had.
Up. Good girl. Yeah, this could work.
Yes? She's a little ruined in the moment. She's like, you know what I'd really like? I'd like you to scratch my udder. Good girl. Well, that's your mom's job. She likes udders, I like backs. That's better. A little softer. Alright, can you square up a little bit, please? Something like that one? Thank you. A little bit down. She's like, hey, I have a really good idea. You can scratch my udder. Okay. The pelvis is a little down on this side, which might explain a little bit why today she was not willing to go out in the field with you. Okay, so I'm going to do the adjustment on it, Jeannie, but adjustments aren't for film. So that was quite a slight misalignment, but you know, it came back so readily. She does want to have a straighter body for sure. So that's good. And if she will give me a moment, I'm going to put those two in too. Now that she's had a few minutes and the left shoulder is adjusted, those feel quite a lot better. Oh, she's not playing anymore.
She's like, I'm done.
I'm done. You know what I want to do? Eat.